Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our next installment of Blend 360's Women's History Month web series. My name is Kelsey, and I am the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Specialist for Talent Solutions. If you missed the first two episodes, please go to our website to check those out at blend360.com to stay up to date with all of the installments of this series. For today's episode, I'll be chatting with Kristin Sullivan-Stoesser, who is our VP of Strategic Growth here at Blend. So, hi, Kristin. Welcome to the web series. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kelsey. I'm good. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So if you could just share a little bit about yourself, about your background and what you do here at Blend.
Sure. Well, I've been in the industry, over 30 years, and I started out in the direct mail business, working for a national direct mail marketing company, and have been in the publishing side of the business, but again, from an advertising perspective. And the common thread was always data and analytics. So found my way over to ComScore, and then most recently here at Blend. But have loved the journey and have learned so much from so many great men and women that have shepherded me along. So
yeah, it's always good to have that, that support, that background, people to get you through, because it takes a village sometimes, to get
I've been very fortunate, really. I've had some great people along my, journey over, and have learned a ton, but very supportive as well, like to help encourage me to keep moving. So it's been great, and I'm loving it here at Blend.
Love to hear it.
So far so good.
Awesome.
I think we are at the right place at the right time with the business model.
Yes, I think so too. And it's great too that, to bring that up, when I was talking with CJ last week, we were talking about mentorship and how important that is for women to have that. So kind of tying into, you having a supportive system with you throughout this, throughout your journey and throughout your career. It's another point that I think is just so critical, is to have that mentorship and to find that person that's going to help you grow and take you to that next level. So that's cool that you
absolutely. And like I said, I've had some really great supportive people along my journey, both men and women. And I have tried in every way that I can to give back and to help others, pull them along as well, and encourage them to go for it, to just, you've got one time around. So make it count.
Make it count. Exactly. Life is too short, as they say, as cliche as it is, it is very true. You gotta make it count, like you said. Awesome. Well, for today's topic, we are going to discuss #BreakTheBias, which is actually this year's Women's History Month theme. Every year they have a theme, and that is 2022 is #BreakTheBias. And it's really cool. You can look on YouTube, you can look on social medias, look up that hashtag, and you'll see a lot of great influencers, and you'll see a lot of great articles that surround that. So make sure you take a look on that. So with that in mind, Kristin, the first question I have for you is, I know you've had, a really great experience in your career so far, and we kind of touched on men and women, really helping you shape your career and your path. So between men and women leadership, where have you experienced the most bias, and was that surprising to you, where you saw that?
Yeah, when we talk about bias, I think a lot of people turn towards men, right? Bias with regard to women. I personally never really experienced that in a negative way. Pretty much any of the men that I worked for always, told me to rise up and go after the next thing, right? Climb the ladder, whatever way you want to, say it. But basically, they were always very encouraging. Women, on the other hand, it was either really good or not good at all. So my first job, working at this national direct mail marketing firm, I had an SVP who was a woman, and she was incredibly supportive and encouraging. Like, sky's the limit. You're early in your career. You can do anything you want. Don't listen to people that say you can't. So she was very, very encouraging. So I've had kind of both sides of the coin, I think, where women are concerned. Nothing heinous or terrible, but there were other women that I've worked for that I'm not really sure if they were meaning to not be so supportive, but I think sometimes, if you are a go-getter and, you're running after the prize, whatever that is that you're going after, I think sometimes it can be intimidating to both men and women.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I generally am pretty hard charging, full of energy. And so maybe that might be part of it. But like I said, nothing was terrible. I didn't experience terrible bias that I would say from men or women throughout my career, but probably a little bit more on the female side, which was surprising to me because as a woman, you got to help each other up, right? You got to grab each other, by the hand and like, come on, let's go. We can do this.
Helping each other out, empower each other.
Yeah. And like I said, I think if anything, with a few exceptions, I've had really great support from men to go get it, and go do it.
Yeah.
And it could be at my level, I don't know. But, here at Blend 360, I report to a woman and she's amazing. She's been just incredibly supportive and offering to help. And I know how busy she is, but she's always offering to help. And, it's basically towel over the arm servant kind of leadership in, hey, this is what we got to get done. So let me know where I can help you. So it's been a mixed bag, but for the most part, I really haven't experienced any detrimental bias, in my opinion.
That's awesome. And I know too, we've discussed in the past about how sometimes, when you're experiencing women bias from women, it could be from women who have had to really like fight tooth and nail to get to that point, and maybe they just don't want to let go of that because they've had to fight so hard because they didn't have, they were, really dealing with that.
Exactly.
Yes. So, and it's kind of like, all right, like, let's break that cycle. And I feel like, we're in a really good spot now where we're, women, we're definitely supporting each other, lifting each other up and making a seat at the table for everybody. I feel like that now is becoming, it's a huge part of our workforce now. So it's interesting, your experiences, with that, especially being in, data analytics, that is a male dominated industry, right? So it's really interesting just to hear, kind of what your experience has been so far.
And I will say, I did hear, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
no,
but I did hear something years ago when you say that with data and analytics that, I think from maybe more the male perspective, when I was working in the publishing industry, I don't think many of them really value data at that time. I was, kind of before my time with getting into data and analytics and I loved it. So I think that too, maybe the time wise, but they didn't expect a woman to want to be leading in a data and analytics capacity. But for whatever reason, I knew it was going to, it just had to get to its time. Right. But I knew that data and analytics was a thing. Probably before it was a thing. So I was told that I was early in seeing it, but it frustrated me in some of the roles that I had because I couldn't get other people on board.
Right. Exactly.
But it's here now, and Blend is all about data analytics, data science. So it's great.
Yes. we love to see it.
Yep.
So Kristin, with that in mind, your experiences dealing with bias in the workplace and it coming from, women, how are you able to overcome that and, kind of break through that bias?
Well, first of all, when I experience it, I'm not a good one for confrontation and things like that when things are hard, but I know it's necessary. So I would say, once I recognized that I was feeling badly or it didn't feel good, I went to those women and said, can we talk about this? Right. And to my amazement, they didn't realize that they were doing it. So can you blame somebody if they really, and they're very apologetic and like, wow, I didn't realize that's how I was coming off. So I would say one, go to the person first. Don't just, take it for granted that they know what they're doing and how it's hurting you or how it's making you feel. Go to the person. You might find, very, very, positive surprise, coming your way that this person really had no clue, even though you're like, how did you not know you were doing this? But they don't. And so I would say that's one. The other is make sure you have a really good tribe around you. We women travel in packs most of the time, but make sure you have really good supportive women in your life away from your workplace, let's say, or in the workplace, that when you're, not feeling right about a conversation, or somebody said something and you're like, felt like bias to me, that you can kind of chat it over with somebody that you really trust, and get a different perspective. So I would say that's probably, the ways that in the past that I've handled it when something didn't really feel right or didn't sound right when it was said.
Yeah. And I love you talking about being direct, and having that open and honest conversation, with leadership where you're experiencing that, because I think a lot of times, I just know from my experience, sometimes women, you're afraid to speak up, you don't want to step out of line. You don't want to create waves or anything like that. But, how often does that impact you negatively, if you don't say anything? So I think that's great advice.
I would say as well, one other piece of advice, I guess, is give anything that felt weird, or that you didn't like, or you thought sounded like bias, give it 24 hours. Everything needs to sit and gel for 24 hours before you go talk to somebody in your tribe, or before you go and address the person to say that, something. And you're really helping them as much as you're helping yourself if they truly want to grow and they didn't realize that they came off that way. Because I don't think anybody gets up to come to work, I hope not, each day and doesn't want to do their job well. And if you're in a management role or a supervisory role, or even a peer-to-peer role, that, you're there to help each other. Right. Yeah. And if that's not how you're coming off, I don't think that people genuinely, at least I hope not, wake up thinking, oh, I really want to make somebody squirm today, or feel bad about themselves or their job and the job they're doing. So,
and I think that's
give them the benefit of the doubt and give it 24 hours and then figure out what's the best course of action to take.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, because, that gives you time to maybe, I know for myself, sometimes that Irish temper comes out, kind of gives you that, a little bit time to kind of cool off and really think about it from another perspective, like, okay, am I just overreacting, or is this really, am I experiencing bias right now and I need to address it? So I love that advice to just, take a beat, cool off a little bit,
Yep.
And then reevaluate. That's great.
Absolutely.
Advice for everyone. And, kind of dealing with that, from experiencing that with women in leadership, has that sort of changed how you, your style of leadership, in your roles? Has that kind of shaped how you approach things and you approach, the people that work with you?
Yeah. I mean, certainly every experience, good or bad, impacts you. And you watch, hopefully you watch people above, around, how they act and how they're received, both by clients as well as your coworkers. So I call it, basically in terms of internal customers and external customers. They're all customers, right? And we're all there, like I said before, to help each other and to move the business along at the same time, both for our internal customers as well as our external customers. So, I mean, as far as like, working closely with those people and trying to help, I think, mentoring or offering advice and, assistance, whether it's somebody new, like on our All Stars program that's young and up and coming, wherever I can be the most helpful to them, I'll jump in. But I've, been part of mentorship programs. I was mentored younger in my days. And like I said, I like to give back. So there have definitely been people in the industry that have reached out to say, hey, can you help me navigate? What do I do? Yeah, sure. And I will always make time to do that. So I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, that giving back aspect, I think, is so critical too, because it's like you had somebody who maybe, they went out of their way to help you, get to where you are, and you want to help that next generation, with the same thing. And I'm a big proponent of what you give out is what you get back. So it's like
very true.
You're putting out the good stuff and you genuinely just want to help people. I think that is huge. And especially for, employees who are looking up to their leadership, to see that is so important, to know that you're there for them. You may be super busy, super hectic, but you'll still make that time to help them and mentor them. And I think that's huge for employees who are working, in your department for you. So I think that's awesome, to have that leadership style where, your employees probably feel like they can come to you too. Like they can, your team can come to you with anything, and they feel comfortable. And that's because you're providing that mentorship for them, which is awesome. So,
well, and even though, as a leader, you have to lead, and sometimes you have to have the hard conversations.
Right.
When, managing people, I never looked at it as they work for me. It was always, we work together, and what makes us all work well together, right? How do we keep lines of communication open? And I asked my team to always check in with me when I wasn't holding up my end of the deal, or they felt like I needed to be doing something different. So I think, that goes both ways as well.
Absolutely.
And again, I really valued having the saying goes, the towel over the arm kind of leadership style.
Yeah,
Digging in. If I'm going to ask them to do it, I better be willing to do it myself.
100%. That's when I was managing. I managed in retail for a number of years. And one of the first things I ever learned was I had called my team that worked with me, I had called them my staff. And I thought about that and I was like, that doesn't seem right. And I talked to my management. I was like, I don't like calling them my staff, like it felt weird. So that from then on, I'm like, I always refer them to like my team, because if you're putting yourself above other people, that can,
that's right.
Like come off.
You might have to lead that team, but you're still part of the team. Right.
Exactly. And Kristin, I know you gave a lot of great advice, earlier on, being direct with, your leadership team, taking that time to think about a situation that maybe you felt was a little bit biased. Would you have any other advice for women who are new to the workforce, just starting out their career, who may be experiencing bias?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say if that's, happening to you, I'm so sorry, because that shouldn't be happening to you. And I think, if you are struggling with what to do, there's always, you can go to HR or you can confide in someone, but I truly believe that the best course of action, if you really feel badly about it, is to go direct to the person. Because like I said, I was shocked and amazed when I went to the person and they really didn't realize that they were doing that. So I think that that's definitely the course of action I would take. However, some, especially up and coming, younger in the industry, might be afraid of retaliation, or, so I get that. That's real too. And people say, oh, no, it wasn't because of that, but I've seen it happen. So in that case, that's where you might exercise going to HR, but then again, that can backfire on you. Sometimes I've seen that happen. So that's really where you might want to look at potentially another group, within the company, or another job, something to get away from that particular person that's really just too much for you to deal with every day. And sometimes, I always believe everything happens for a reason. Sometimes that's happening for a reason. You're supposed to be someplace else. And unless you move, it's going to stay the same. So you either have to go address it. If you don't feel comfortable in addressing it, talk to people in your sphere that you do trust, get a different perspective from them. I usually talk to 2 or 3 people to see if I can get a consensus on how I'm feeling and like what my next course of action would be. But don't be afraid to move. Sometimes you have to. And sometimes that's the universe telling you you're supposed to be someplace else right now. And we're just giving you a little shove along. So, yeah,
I love that. Because, if it's not servicing you, it's not going to give you any more, experience. It's not going to be worth it. There's so many opportunities out there. And if you're experiencing that and you feel like you can't say anything, then like you said, life is too short to deal with that kind of, situation. So, yeah.
I wouldn't give up on it in a day, but like if you see this repeated and you're not getting anywhere when you try to address it, or, you don't feel like you can address it, that's even worse. You shouldn't be in that environment or working under those constraints, day in and day out. That's just not healthy.
No, so not at all.
and today, much more so, I think, than ever before, it's definitely moved to the forefront, bias. And it's said not to be tolerated at most major companies today. So I think if you just wave the flag and say, hey, this isn't feeling good, you'll have a good conversation. But don't be afraid to move.
Yeah, I think that was a great point. I think a lot of people are now more aware of it, and it's becoming, mainstream now of what, women and men sometimes face, the biases in the workforce. So I think a lot of managing teams and leadership teams are becoming more aware of that, like you said. So it could be easier to have those conversations because it is such a hot topic right now. So that's a great point.
Yeah. So, and I think everyone's trying to be mindful of it, right?
Yeah.
So because it's been discussed so much. So that's really good for people just starting out in the industry, I think. Don't be afraid to speak up, but there's a time and place. Give yourself 24 hours.
Yes.
And, talk to a few people that you trust, at work or not at work, that kind of know the other person or the situation, and go from there. But don't, if all else fails, don't be afraid to move.
Yeah. I love that so much. Kristin, we had such a great conversation today. I was so excited to be able to speak with you. Your background is just awesome and your career has been phenomenal. So it's definitely going to be inspirational for, a lot of people to hear your story. So thank you so much for, your time and your thoughts today around, breaking the bias and really good tips for women to kind of get through that. So
Thank you so much for having me and for allowing me to talk with you.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it helps somebody who hears it, right?
Yes.
I do mean what I say. Anybody needs to talk, I'm here for.
Yeah. Perfect. And you guys can always, connect with us on LinkedIn. We're both there. The next episode is going to be out next Wednesday. So for any more information about this series or, what we are doing here at Blend, check out our website at blend360.com. Thank you.